Good. All right. Belief number 2, you're going to love this one. Just be you. It's being yourself that's so important. And if you're a bubbly, joyful, happy person, that's how you should speak in front of a group. If you're more direct, serious, and tough, then that's how you should speak. If you're more nerdy and bookish and analytical and boring, that's how you should speak. If you look like this guy, you probably shouldn't be speaking at all. Okay, seriously, it's not a performance. Effective speaking is a private conversation held publicly. And when you are congruent, you're in harmony and in peace. And when I first heard Mary Morrissey speak, I was so impressed with her ability to connect with an audience. Now, why is that? Is it because of voice, of body movement? Nothing like that. Mary believes what she says. Mary lives what she says. And Mary is so passionate about what she says, which means Mary Morrissey is congruent. Are you being congruent? And if you aren't like Matt, bubbly and joyful and enthusiastic, and you're more low-key, quiet and reserving, and people call you boring, that's how you should speak. Yes, you should be boring if you are a boring person. Why do you want somebody to come into a training and say, who are you? You're so different than the person I saw at that meeting or saw on the video. So let me give you an example. I was hired by a Fortune 500 company to do a keynote address at their national sales meeting. And the president of the company asked, after seeing my presentation, said, you really have some great speaking skills. You need to help Bob. He's our chief financial officer, and he is bored. Matter of fact, we call him Boring Bob. So I said, sure, I'd be willing to help him. So I met with Bob, and he certainly was boring. And the president told me every year he speaks at our national sales meeting, and everybody falls asleep. What do? He's coming up tomorrow to speak. I don't know what to do. I said, well, let me work with Bob. So I told Bob, just be you. He said, well, I am. Everybody falls asleep. Then we're going to put that in the introduction. So here's a short version of what I wrote for the introduction for Boring Bob, Chief Financial Officer. The next part of our program is the part that most of you don't look forward to. It's when our Chief Financial Officer gives you all the numbers and what's going to happen next year and all the goals that we're going to set. And we call him Boring Bob. Why is that? Because people fall asleep when he talks. He is a monotone voice. He has very little energy, but that's Bob. But the reason we have him at our national sales meeting is these numbers are so important for you. You need to hear them, and Bob's the one that's got the right numbers. So we have a new plan this year. If the person next to you starts to fall asleep, it's your job to wake them up. Now, for those of you in the front row, if Bob starts to fall asleep while he's talking, you run up on stage and wake him up. Well, the audience was laughing at this point. And then he went on to say, and by the way, if you looked in the dictionary, under the word boring, you would see a picture of Bob. Please help welcome the most boring chief financial officer we could find, Boring Bob. He got a standing ovation before he said his first words. And then I had him say, well, some of you know, I think his wife was Evelyn. Some of you know my wife, Evelyn. We've been married 27 years. But on our first date, she slapped me. Oh, I wasn't getting fresh. She thought I was dead. And then he went on to say, don't let my laid-back style fool you. Inside, I am so excited about what we're going to do this year, even though it doesn't show. So there's a way to anticipate a negative. If you have an accent, put that in the introduction. Now, when it comes to Matt Boggs, not everybody is like Matt. I mean, I've known him for all these years. He is so positive, so enthusiastic. As a matter of fact, if Matt was the captain of the Titanic, he would have just told the passengers, we're stopping for ice. Well, seriously, be yourself. That's belief number 2. Do you accept that you can be you and still be highly effective?